Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Teman-teman, balik lagi di channel YouTube gua Hairun Imam. IKN semakin mendunia. Beberapa hari yang lalu, Bapak Ridwan Kamil selaku kurator IKN itu berbicara di forum internasional terkait dengan IKN. Seperti apa infrastrukturnya, seperti apa hutannya, seperti apa ekosistemnya, seperti apa kehidupannya. Ridwan Kamil menjelaskan semuanya secara rinci. Dan IKN mendapat aplaus dari dunia internasional, teman-teman. Oke, tanpa perlu berlama-lama lagi, mari kita simak videonya berikut ini.
First of all, I would like to reporting to you that Jakarta is no longer the capital of Indonesia. For you who don't know, now the capital of Republic of Indonesia named Nusantara in the island of Kalimantan. The idea of moving the capital has been there since colonial time. But only in the time of President Jokowi has its own momentum to move to Nusantara. And we promise the world to be one of the greenest and sustainable city. I advise the president as a curator, means I'm doing a quality control on the planning, design of infrastructure. We would like to be the net zero city, so Nusantara, when it will be finished, it will be a EV only city. So if you drive fossil fuel, will be stopped at the perimeter of the city and change your vehicle into EV. So I think because the President Jokowi ends his second term in October, so one of the lesson learned is everything is political, yeah. The president pushed the deadline very, very strict. So you can imagine day and night, all the construction are doing their best to meet the deadline. But we keep our sustainability index also intact. We have been cooperating with 28 international institutions to oversee the projects. We are doing a cooperation with 11 domestic and international universities. We are now in contract with 11 technology companies to make sure we deliver the promise, yeah, to be the green, to be a smart city also. At the end of the day, I advise President, Mr. President, we are designing a city, not a government center, okay? So city is for everyone. Informal, formal, there's another lesson learned. And everybody need to have a place in Nusantara. So, but for today, majority is domestic investor, investing already around $3 billion in construction. And we are hoping also to invite international investor and consultant also, because, you know, building a city takes time. Washington DC is more than 100 years to be a Washington DC today. So Nusantara is about 10 to 50 years in the making. And I told the president also, Mr. President, I used to lecture urban design in my university, and I have a class called Failed Capitals of the World. Yeah, so I told Mr. President, make sure we do a lesson learned from the failed capital, because it's always what you call it, very epic concept, yeah, to design a city from scratch in a speed that fast, but mostly failed to invite people, mostly failed to create a very sizable, livable city. So I told the president, let's carefully design, yeah, and the new elected president, Mr. Prabowo Subianto, will be sworn in October, also pledged to continue the capital because it's very historical. So I think, as I said, everything is political, but my job is to make sure we deliver the promise to be green, net zero, and sustainable cities. Thank you.
Right. I probably would add to that. I think, Park Ridwan, this is exactly where we're hoping that everything is political, but political messengers and political representations can move that forward. It's interesting you talked about the cities, because we started working on, and we were talking about that earlier, that we started working on Nusantara to plan the 256,000 hectares of the land in 2017, which is 5 times the size of Singapore. And we looked at exactly that, about the biggest challenge that Nusantara faces is, one thing is you make it technically livable, which is you provide the cars, your drains and everything. And every city is 30, 40 years in making. So cities change and memories are built. The problem is phase one, when there is no memory. How do you attract people and live there and create memories for the next generations to come? So that becomes an interesting situation which current cities don't face. And when we talk about 10 new mega cities coming, most of them are going to be brand new cities. And how do you create that attraction to happen?
Right, attracting that talent is so important. We also, obviously, funding is so important, right? I mean, the Nusantara is conservatively a $45 billion project, and probably much, much more when we get to the end there. You know, how important are public-private partnerships in building mega cities and building projects like this? Vikram, maybe you can address that.
Thanks for having me. I think I honestly feel funding is not a big challenge when it comes to cities. There's lots of capital out there. The challenge is finding champions. I think if you have champions, Pakridwan, I think it matters, right? If you have a counterpart that's visionary, that wants to make a change, wants to build something which leaves a legacy behind, that is the biggest factor for the success of engaging for financing. The second most important thing for us as a DFI or any commercial financial institution is, are the cities able to develop long-term capital investment plans, right? Is there a benchmarking of how this city is performing vis-a-vis the best in the world, right? Service delivery levels on various issues like potable water, quality of electricity, sewage, and then assessing if we were to upgrade these cities to the best in class, what would be the investment plans look like? They cannot be annual. They have to be 3, 5, 7, 10-year kind of plans. And that's important because you need to tie in cities to these long-term commitments. The challenge we face as financiers is the continuity in leadership, right? As you, I think, alluded to, is your commissioners, mayors change every 3, 5 years. They have different agendas. And to tie down to cities to these kind of plans is not always easy. And then coming back to the point Chintan made, the capacity to develop projects which may be state-funded, maybe PPPs, as you alluded to, but who takes that decision? On what basis are you making that judgment call? All that requires assessing the capacity of the city to develop projects on its own, execute on its own, or bring in the private sector where the value of efficiency and the service delivery becomes very, very important. So I think it's a combination of all these factors that comes together into making a city financeable.
Yeah. Pakridwan, I wonder if you can maybe expand on that. I mean, obviously you mentioned private investors. How important is private investors in the development of Nusantara right now? And where are we on that in terms of that funding?
Yes, according to my experience, I think government money can only afford maximum 20% to achieve the ideal ultimate plan. So we need 80% coming from public-private partnership. But you know, to convince the international financial institution, we need to put the seed of money coming from the federal government. That's why I told you 3 billion already on construction, a majority coming from domestic investor, not yet the international investor. Seeing is believing, so I'm hoping you can come to Nusantara after September when the airport is finished and the toll road also is finished. And every week I'm supervising 5 to 6 projects, including we have a project for the animal. We design a bridge for animal to cross the toll road. Yeah, and also we do a rewilding because, you know, this is a misconception. Yeah, the Nusantara location is a monoculture eucalyptus tree for industry. So every 6 years they cut the tree to make papers and toilet papers, for example. But now we are put a seed of 21 million for tropical tree because there's nothing there yet. So hopefully within 10 years it become another heaven for tropical forest, for example. and of course to build the 80% of ultimate plans, we really need a participation from the public-private partnership. So hopefully after September, if you can come, maybe we can discuss and be more productive on cooperation.
Yeah. And how in terms of getting beyond the domestic private organizations involved, I mean, do you think there's what needs to happen to get the foreign investors in, or even government to government money?
Of course, President always send me to international conference to speak like this. So I can be the liaison to that questions. We might do something like this in Nusantara, for example. Yeah, I can do that also, or I can speak to any international conference. But basically, we would like to show first the first phase. So first phase is basically the palace of the president and 50% of the ministerial complex that will be finished in next month. This August 17, our Independence Day, will be the first conducted in Nusantara, for example. So I think I'm inviting you to see, and hopefully this become the another example of good design, creating good future. But I always tell the president, the main challenge to Nusantara is importing people. Okay, how to invite, because now is no population. Yeah, I was declined. I was saying no to become the leader of IKN before, because president, I'm still the governor of West Java, 50 million people. If I move to be a governor of Nusantara, 0 people. So maybe later, yeah, next to 5 to 10 years.
Well, Chintan, I'm going to ask you, obviously not everyone gets a chance to build cities from scratch, and most of the cities here in Southeast Asia and in Asia are obviously existing cities that have so much memory, as you said, and so much history and inhabitants. What are the biggest challenges to get those cities to be sustainable, to be livable?
I think the biggest challenge is more systemic. So we need to think about, so I think, as Vikram said, there is money there. The issue is how to get the money to the right projects, but how do you also get the money, use the money to implement it in the right way? So quite a few times we end up seeing that the projects are there and the money is straight given to that, but not enough money spent in the developing the project to a certain level, which can then legitimize the delivery of that project. So we feel that the biggest challenge is one aspect of that systems, which is connecting the funding to the project and all the other ecosystems in the middle. But the other challenge is, how do you change, again, the people's behaviors in terms of achieving that aspect of sustainability? So if I look at from the top-down point of view, the cities that we all live in, of course, I mentioned earlier, they are built in 20th century. So what we are all going through right now is retrofitting of those cities to be able to be fit for purpose in the climate emergency era. And that retrofitting may be the building that we live in, or for that matter, the streets that we drive our cars on, or we may not need those cars in the future, and the way our lifestyles are. So the challenge is not just infrastructural challenge, the challenge is also people challenge. Easier when you have no people in the city, because then you can, when you move there, that's how people need to know how they live. Problem is the memory of the way been living in those cities, and how do you slowly change people there. So Singapore is a great example of the congestion charge, what we call in the UK here, the emission zone, where they slowly get people out of the cars and more into public transport. Greenways are created, cycling, pedestrian networks, in probably one of the most tropical cities you could find. Cities in Manila are also, the new CBDs in Manila are also looking at that. The thing that we end up telling our clients, be it a government or private developers or whoever, is what you're planning for, this is where you go beyond the election cycle, is 10 years from now that's going to come in play. Which means what you're planning for is someone who's 15-year-old right now who is going to be moving through your city when they're 25. Or someone who's 25 who's planning to buy a home with their family when they're 35. Think about what they want in that 10 years from now and plan for that. So there was an interesting survey done, I think, a couple of years ago for across Southeast Asia, where the youth was asked whether they would spend money in buying a car or anything else, and the answer was clear: we'll spend money in our experience of our lives rather than buying a car, because we can now call an Uber or a Grab and do that. I think the governments need to harness that and change the way we think about it, because everything that we do right now, the Department of Transport is like, I want 6 lanes there because the cars are only increasing. No, they're increasing now. 10 years from now, it won't be the case. So that systemic change is what I was talking about, needs to happen across the board for us to achieve that sustainable, livable city.
Really, it all comes down to that planning, right?
Yeah.
Which is so critical. We're quickly running out of time, but before we go, I wanted to ask you guys, each one of you, what's one fresh, innovative, crazy idea that you'd like to see in terms of what the city of the future would look like, or who might fund it, how to get it funded?
So, I had a feeling you were going to throw something like this. So I was thinking about, my view of, or dystopian view of how cities in the future, but aerial roadways, right? I look at delivery today, last mile delivery, everybody uses Grab, Food Panda and everything else, and that's adding to a lot of traffic. But I don't see it being a big challenge for this to be replaced by drone deliveries through certain pathways. It can be done. It's pretty easy. The technology exists today. That for me is something that I see 5-10 years down the road definitely happening in Asia. I may be wrong, but fingers crossed.
Grab might be calling you. What about you, Chintan?
I'm going to go a bit more optimistic here. I hope the cities go truly circular. When we talk about true circularity, is when every waste is someone's resource, and it can change the way the entire city works, and that requires us to think about how the food is grown in the city, and how the waste gets turned into energy, and how the water from the rains go into the right location and feed us back. And for that, our economy will have to change. The way we behave, the way we function in the city will have to change. And if we can achieve that, hopefully I don't have any drones going next to my bathroom when I'm showering, but I hope that water that goes in the drain is actually coming back into my tap that I'm drinking. So yeah.
Great. Power everyone.
Yes, I always consistent. As a politician, I coined the term that the city needs to be livable, but also lovable. Yeah. It works in infrastructure point of view, but also lovable because people put culture, put expression of identity also to the city. But I think the future challenge is the climate crisis. Yeah. I think we've been doing excessive mobility, releasing carbon everywhere. So my aspiration in the future is we could do work from anywhere, become a culture, become a new mindset. When I was a governor of West Java, the first government in Indonesia that has a policy of work from home permanently, so I give 10% of my workforce to be work from home. So I think this new mindset of less mobility but more productivity would be something exciting in the future to fight the climate crisis, also to create a better quality of life also.
I love those ideas, and with that we'll have to end. Thank you so much, Pak Ridwan, Vikram, and Chintan.
Nah, teman-teman, itulah tadi penjelasan yang sangat rinci dari Bapak Ridwan Kamil selaku kurator IKN terkait dengan bagaimana infrastruktur, bagaimana ekosistem, bagaimana hutannya, bagaimana kehidupan dari IKN itu sendiri nantinya, teman-teman. Ini sangat luar biasa karena Bapak Ridwan Kamil menjelaskannya di depan forum internasional, tentunya dilihat oleh seluruh mata dunia, teman-teman. Kita doakan semoga IKN semakin baik, semakin cepat selesai, semakin bisa dinikmati oleh orang lain, sehingga investor-investor asing juga berdatangan ke IKN untuk berinvestasi. Dan kita doakan pemimpin-pemimpin kita agar selalu sehat, agar selalu bisa bekerja sesuai dengan koridornya, sesuai dengan kepentingan rakyat, dan utamanya IKN selalu menjadi kebanggaan kita semua, teman-teman. Oke, mungkin cukup sekian dulu video kali ini. Jangan lupa like, subscribe, dan share videonya. Akhir kata, billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye-bye.